McNair gives it to George, running right up the middle. Touchdown! Titan! There are no flags on the field! It's a miracle!
Safety, now you're one-on-one with it.
Shows why he's the man! In trouble. Sack!
Ladies and gentlemen, Titan Nation, welcome back to another episode of Mr. Titan. Today we have two-time Pro Bowler Derrick Mason in the house. How you doing, Derrick?
Hey, I'm doing wonderful. How about yourself?
Just hanging in here, man. I'm still trying to get everything adjusted from London time, and it was.
I don't blame you.
I'm not gonna lie, it was a little rough. Coming back, I slept the whole day after that. And then the day after that, I had to go to work. But how do you feel coming back from London, man?
It took me a few days, to kind of get my body acclimated back to Central Time. But we got back. My daughter and I got back Monday afternoon.
Okay.
And you talk about somebody that was tired. I was asleep by 8:00 on Tuesday, sleep by 8:00 on Wednesday. Thursday, I was asleep by 8:30, 9:00. So it wasn't until like Friday where I felt like myself again. So this week is going pretty good. So,
Okay,
but I
that's
did
good.
have a good time. I did have a good time, and as did my daughter. So
That's good.
thinking about going
How
back
was the
again in
food,
the
man?
summer.
How was the food?
Oh, the food was wonderful. The places, because my daughter, she's good at, mapping things out, finding things, in certain areas that we're going to visit.
Yeah.
She does a good job at, planning everything. And she planned the dinners, the lunches. We walked around, shopped. So the food was great.
Yeah, because
So that's why I said we're planning on going back over there again next year.
Cool. Yeah, because when I met you, it was for the two-tone. I think it was like the pep rally, right? It was that night.
Yeah.
And I know you guys were gonna go have Italian food, and I said, from my experience, London food was a little rough on me. So I'm like, hey, hopefully the Italian food is good, man. And I know your daughter picked it, so I'm glad it turned out good, man. It turned out.
Yeah, it did. It turned out great. So we had, again, food was great. Had a wonderful experience. So much so that we're looking to go back over there again next summer.
Now, a quick question about London. Okay, was that
Mhm.
your first time, right? That's what you told me, I think, right?
Yeah, that was my first time. My daughter had been over there with her mom and her brother, but for me, that was my first time.
Now, would you, in obviously the past, as a player, would you like to have gone to London and kind of associate yourself with playing in London maybe like once a year or whatever? Or are you kind of like, no, I was good. I think good in
No,
this.
I would have loved going over there because it would have been another experience. I remember, being in college my freshman year at Michigan State. We went over to Japan to play a game against Wisconsin, and
Okay.
being over there for that week was an experience. I had never been out of the country at that point, and it was just a wonderful experience. Being an 18-year-old kid, now fast forward being over, not getting an opportunity to play overseas during my football career. I think my last 2 years were when the NFL started to slowly do games, and I think at that point they were just doing preseason games. But I would have loved to have that experience with my team at that particular time, going over to London or Germany or anywhere else, just to expand the game of football.
Definitely. And it has grown from, I mean, how many, I think they've been doing it for what, around 4 or 5 years already? The London,
Yeah,
so it's nice.
yeah, it's been a good while, and it doesn't seem like they are going to stop anytime soon.
Yeah, 100%. Now, when you guys went to Japan, how did your team function? How did that? Yeah, how did you guys work? Because again, a lot of people were complaining, talking about the Titans leaving. We're getting there
Mhm.
Friday morning when the game was Sunday, where the Ravens had, I think they got there like a week before. Uh,
Yeah.
what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, just looking back on when we went my freshman year, I think we spent a week over there.
Okay.
And everything, they had everything sort of mapped out for us. Everything was
Mhm.
on schedules. And we were young then, so us getting acclimated wasn't as
Not too
bad
bad.
as it
Yeah.
is now. Now I'm 50 years old, so it's a little bit different now. But we acclimated very well. But if I can recall, we got our tails whooped by a Ron Dane led Wisconsin team. So I don't know if that had to do with the travel because they traveled the same time we did. It
Oh
probably had
no.
more to do with them being better than us at that particular time.
Okay.
So
You just use that. You add the travel as an excuse sometimes. Like, you know what? We couldn't get it together. That's it. That's what happened.
exactly.
Um, Looking back in your career, man, I've noticed something where it's kind of like a trend you had going from high
Hmm.
school to college to the NFLs, you setting records constantly.
Hmm.
Um, how did what was your standard? Was it something that you want to do when you were younger? Was that taught from your parents? Set goals for yourself? How did that work? Because in high school, I forgot what it was I was reading. I'm like, man, this guy he broke the record for this, and then you go to college and he broke the record for this, and then the NFL. I'm
Hmm.
like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, looking back on my high school days,
Mhm.
people got to understand. I've told this story plenty of times because people, they look at the finished product, they look at the end product, and they say, "Well, it must have been, you must have been playing forever and started
Uh-huh.
when you were little league." No, I didn't. I didn't. I loved watching football because I had older brothers. I had three older brothers,
Okay.
a younger brother. There were seven of us, two girls and five boys. So football for us was Saturday, Sunday. We played it, we
Hmm.
watched it. In between halftime, we would go outside in Detroit and play for a little while, then go back in the house and watch the remainder of the football games. A lot of times we were watching the Lions or the Bears, New
Hmm.
York, Dallas, teams like that back in the 80s. So I enjoyed football, but not to a point where I wanted to play it. I remember when we were younger, my brothers and them, they were older than me, obviously. So we all went down to this park called Hellman's um, Recreational Center in Detroit, on the east side of Detroit. So they had this big football. You come, you sign up, get your pads, we'll place you on the team and all this and all that. So I went with my two of my older brothers. We
Hmm.
went there, signed up everything else. I got my pads, practice, came home. I'm like, I don't want to play. I don't want to play. So the pads got taken back, and I did not play organized football. Now you got to imagine that was when I was 8, somewhere around there, 7, 8. I did not put on pads again until my 11th grade of high school. I just didn't. I enjoyed playing basketball. I love watching basketball. The Pistons were big at the time.
We're
You're
Pistons.
talking about
Nasty.
Michigan basketball, Michigan State basketball. So basketball was huge in the city of Detroit. So me playing football didn't want to get hit.
Hmm.
Got it hit enough with my brothers playing in the yard. I'm like, I'm not doing this. So I
Yeah.
sort of geared toward basketball, but then eventually, we moved from one side of town to the next. My parents started a new high school and ended up playing my 11th grade year. And that was just by happenstance. It wasn't like, hey, coach, hey, I want to play. No, it wasn't that way. It was more so of, the head football coach was the track coach, and every day he would see me, no lie, every day he would see me in the gym room. He would come up to me and say, "Boy, you need to be playing football. Boy, you don't need to be playing basketball. You need to be playing football." And I'm looking at him like he's crazy. I'm like, man, no, I ain't going out there. But I remember, but I do remember one day we were playing basketball,
Hmm.
just after hours. We were in there playing basketball, and I ended up doing something. Damn it, I hurt my hip or something so much so that I had to. My mom had to come and get me and take me to the hospital, and I
Hmm.
think I chipped a pelvic bone or something. But I remember sitting there and the coach walked up to me, Coach Robert Lynch, of Mumford High School, walked up to me and said, "Boy, I told you, stop playing that basketball. You need to come out and play football." So after that, I went out. I ran track for him as well, and we had a
Okay.
really, really good track team. And I just, parlayed that into playing football, and it just came naturally because even though I hadn't played in pads,
Mhm.
organized football, I had played so much football with my brothers. I mean, they would beat me up. I mean, more than anybody ever have.
Yeah.
And it once I got out there, it just felt natural to me.
Gotcha, gotcha. Was like you said, you're talking about basketball and stuff. Was basketball like a passion that you wanted to pursue eventually when you were younger? Like, what was your passion when you were younger? Was it basketball?
I don't. Yes, I love
Hmm.
basketball. I never thought that, I would make it
Career.
professionally,
Okay.
but I just enjoyed watching basketball. I enjoyed watching the Pistons back then, even before they won championships, whether it was Kelly Tripucka, Adrian Dantley, then Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, all those guys, then they start winning championships. But I just love basketball. There was something about you know, basketball that I could relate to because to me it was a bunch of guys that I would see, Chris Webber come up to my high school because his mom taught there. He would come up there and play basketball, just, messing around and playing basketball with the basketball team. So you seeing this, you watching Jalen Rose play at Southwestern and how good those teams were. So you just was enamored. And then I lived right down the street from the University of Detroit and they had good players on their basketball team. So I was just enamored by basketball. But I mean, God had another path for me. I
Yep.
didn't grow to be nothing but 5'11". So it's like, hey,
Hey, hey, man.
football is the deal.
Hey, I agree with you. I understand with the whole basketball thing. Again, growing up in the '90s, I'm
Uh-huh.
again from Jersey, big Knicks fan. The Knicks were
Mhm.
the team. Patrick Ewing, Charles Oakley, Larry Johnson
Exactly.
had that group. And then after that, I grew up a little bit and they just became bad. After the '90s, they just weren't good, man. Unfortunately, still a diehard Knicks fan.
Uh-huh.
It's rough,
It
man.
hurts.
It's hard, man.
uh,
The good old days, man. The good old days. I think basketball has changed completely,
mhm.
the style and stuff. But again, it's always fun to watch. Let's talk a little bit about college football. Once you got to you're getting there, you're getting to the big leagues and stuff. Was there where you were like, hey, you start turning heads, you start, people start noticing you? Did you want to eventually just take that to another career? And what like NFL team were you looking at? Because everyone
Mhm.
talks, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I got to Michigan State,
Hmm.
I had to work through, receivers, whether it was Mill Coleman, who he was the player of the year in the state of Michigan. So he was at Michigan State. He was a dual threat quarterback receiver, but played majority receiver. Then had Muhsin Muhammad, who played 12, 13 years in the National Football League. Napoleon Outlaw, who was there. And I'm saying names that you may not know, but these are guys that were older than me, that were
Hmm.
in front of me, that I had to, sort of. And then you're not even talking about the five would have been back then 5-star guys that they brought in. Obviously, in the early '90s, they didn't have stars on their on the side of their names, but these guys in today's would be 5-star athletes
Yeah.
or 5-star receivers. So I had to work my way through those situations. And it was tough because, it's like I'm out here busting my tail. I know I can play this game, but because they recruit a couple other guys, ahead of you, you sort of down on the depth chart before you can even try to prove yourself that you can play. But I continue to work.
Right.
I continue to hone in on my skills. Lucky for me, we had some really good coaches. One in Charlie Baggett, who coached in the NFL for a while and then came back to Michigan State. He recruited me out of high school, him and Bobby Williams. And then, Skip Pete, who's the brother of Rodney Pete, he was my coach for a while. So I had NFL coaches in my receiver room
Okay.
that could teach me the nuances of being a receiver. But I wanted to, I wanted to be the best receiver that I could possibly be. And whatever that ended out, whatever that outcome would be, then I
Yeah.
would accept it as long as I went out there and put in the work and played hard and physical. And what I did. I was always taught, it's not where you start, it's where you finish, and you got to play hard no matter what. And I took those things and those attributes or whatnot. I took them to college and it worked out for me. It was hard, but it worked out. I cut my teeth in at Michigan State, and I was able to earn a starting spot. My sophomore year, I was splitting time between myself and Nigeria Carter. And then my junior year, I was able to earn a spot as a starting X alongside Musin Muhammad. And that was his senior year, I believe. But I didn't realize how good I was or could be. It wasn't until my junior year where I started making plays one after another. And then knowing the quarterback had confidence in me and just going out there and being a part of the game plan each and every week. That's when I started to think, man, I can play this game at the highest level. I just need to stay healthy. And, I managed to stay healthy, didn't miss any games in college. Even though I had a broken wrist, I still remember playing that with that big cast against Nebraska. But I prided myself on my durability and my ability to run routes and catch the football, and it worked out for me.
100%, man. Like I said, your college career, was amazing, and then escalating to the pros, right? 97 NFL draft, the Tennessee Oilers. Yes, the Tennessee Oilers pick Derrick Mason. How was that feeling? How was that? Just a little recap of the NFL draft back in the day, because it's not like now, right? Now it's
Yeah, it's not, no, not at
man,
all.
it's crazy now, but back in the day it wasn't. But again, being picked by the Tennessee Oilers.
You know what? I'm not gonna be because if the people that know me,
Mhm.
I don't get too high and I don't get too low. Everything is even keel. I try to keep everything as even keel as possible. And I was upset because, talking with my agent and, going to the Senior Bowl and doing well at the Senior Bowl, running well at the combine, but didn't run even better when we did our pro day. I'm thinking, okay, I've done enough. I should be
First, second,
second. I wasn't even thinking first round.
second
My
and
my
third.
agent was like, yes, my agent was like, second, third round. That's where we should be. We're good. So I'm like, okay, cool. Everybody wants to go in the first round, but everybody can't go in the first
Yeah,
round.
of course.
Even guys that grade out to be first rounders, sometimes they go in the second, depending on who's picking. So first round came and went. They really didn't pay attention to it.
Mhm.
Second round came. I'm thinking like, okay, nobody picked me, so I'm getting a little bit upset. Third round, and you gotta remember back then though, the NFL draft was so long, like long. And you're talking about they get what, maybe 8 minutes to pick in between picks, or 10 minutes in the first round, 8 minutes in the second. You're talking about 15 minutes no matter what. And you're sitting around waiting. So that second round was long. I'm getting upset. Third round comes, and I'm like, at the end of the third, I'm like, nobody picked me. So I'm instantly just like pissed, like, okay, what's going on here? Fourth round comes, 97th pick, and I get the call from, I think it was Jeff Fisher at the time. Get the call from Jeff Fisher. Hey, we're going to draft you, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, okay, cool. I wasn't too high, nor
That
was I
wasn't
too
too
low.
long. Gotcha.
I was upset because, yeah, you picked me,
Uh-huh.
but I felt I should have been picked higher. So
Absolutely.
again, my brother, listen, again, it's not where you're picked, it's what you do when you get there. My brother would preach that to me all the time, even so much so when I went to my first training camp, mini camp up in we had to fly down to Houston. This is as they were making a transition, but we spent 2 weeks in Houston doing a mini camp. And I remember before I left, my the second oldest came up to me and said, listen, again, it's not where you were drafted, it's what you do when you get there. Because he knew I was upset. He said, listen, your sole focus is to go down there and prove to them that they made a mistake. They should have drafted you early. And it's all about you. Keep your head in the books. Don't do anything else. No going, no doing nothing. Keep your head in the book and it was like you'd do good. So I went there. That was my mentality. I went there. I did everything they asked me to do. I kept my head in the books. Even when guys were going out, I'm like, nope, I got to be in my book. I'm reading, I'm studying. So much so that the offensive coordinator at the time, Les Steckel, he was like, well, I want you to learn the H and the X and the Z. And I'm thinking like, man, y'all didn't draft me in the first or second round. Y'all drafted that guy in the second round. Why do I need to learn all of this? Y'all seem like y'all put me at a disadvantage, you know? He should be the one that's learning all this. But I took it in stride and I learned every position and I did well and I excelled. But still, I had to fight through, you know, guys being tired of me, guys are all on the team. But I did enough that year, well, that preseason and that mini camp to earn a starting spot as a third receiver for the first couple of games. Now, I earned that spot because the starter was hurt, but yet still I had done enough that they chose me to be his replacement, a rookie to be his replacement. And, I felt that, even with that, I still was fighting. And no matter my 8 years here in Nashville, I fought until they released me after my 8 years. Like every year I got to prove to them that I deserve that y'all made a mistake. Y'all should have picked me in the first round and not in the fourth round. And I'm going to prove to you every day that I'm much better than anybody that you may have picked before me. And, I kept that mentality and it went that way.
Nice, nice. And like again, playing with a chip on your shoulder.
Oh yeah, it's a huge chip. I kept that chip for 15 years.
Oh man. How, do you remember exactly the very first game you started as a starter?
As a starter,
Yeah.
now I can go back to my rookie year and I played
Let's do
with
that.
Oakland. Yeah, it was
Okay.
Oakland. I came in as the third wide receiver, so I was in their starting three wide receiver package. And I remember this like it was yesterday. So all week we were playing the Oakland Raiders. At the time, the Oakland Raiders, now the Vegas Raiders. We were playing the Oakland Raiders, and we were playing them in Memphis because we didn't have a stadium. So all of our home games would be in Memphis, as you know. So I remember all week they had this defensive back, last name Hayes. Was it Alvin Hayes? But I know his last name was Hayes. And, you know, the Oakland Raiders were notorious for having long, physical defensive backs that could run. But it was preached to us all week, hey, listen, these guys are really good at stripping the ball. So when you catch it, hold on to it, get down, get your yardage, whatever. But you got to be conscious of these guys want to strip. So I'm thinking all this. Everybody is okay, but it's like okay, now you're in a practice and you're just doing what you need to do. So first play, first third down, I get in the game, go in motion, come out, and I'm sitting there, and Hayes is on me in the slot. So Steve yells out the signals, hut. I run a slant, boom, catch it, boom, get upfield, take 2 steps up the field. Next thing I know, Hayes come from behind me and rips the ball out. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. The one thing we talked about the whole week, and it's
That's the
not like
first.
I neglected it. It's
Mhm.
not like I wasn't thinking about it, but he just made a good play. So I spent the whole time when I wasn't in the game, I had a football in my hand, holding it. So that was my experience. Like, welcome to the NFL experience. Like,
Oh
welcome
wow.
to the NFL in the regular season. But I
They,
learned
they
from
had you
that.
hold the ball the whole time, the coach.
No, I held it. I held it.
Okay,
I'm
you
like, hey,
held it.
listen, yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna get used to holding this football, and
Oh,
never again will I get another, a strip fumble. It took a long time before me fumbling the
yeah,
ball
yeah.
from a receiver standpoint happened again.
Interesting, interesting. When you walked into the facility, so who, like, and again, your wide receiver core, was there anyone that you kind of gravitated to, like leader, mentor wise, in your time there?
Um, Not my first year.
Not your first year.
Not really my second year. Because it was a weird and I'm good friends with these guys now.
Mm.
But it was just a weird situation to walk into when You have a team that 2 years ago they draft Chris Sanders, who at the time he was coming on as a young receiver. Then you had Willie Davis. Then you had Derrick. I forgot Derrick's last name. Then you had other guys there, veteran guys, and you're walking in as this rookie along with another rookie they drafted in the second round. So the thought is these rookies are coming in here to take my job.
Mhm.
And even though there was a good relationship between all of us, but I think that you can sort of feel that competition, like, hey, listen, if you're gonna figure it out, you're gonna figure it out on your own.
Gotcha.
Um, and there wasn't a big, hey, young Rook, come here, let me show
Mhm.
you what's going on, this and that and that and this. And but I mean, those guys were great, but
Mhm.
they were not, and I understood once I became a veteran guy. I understood what they were going through. Like, eventually, your job is going to get taken, and if he's going to take it, they felt, hey, listen, he's going to take it on his own. I'm not going to sit here and help him
Yeah, you just
through
help
the
them
whole
take it back.
process.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I end up being really good friends, and it wasn't until, probably my second year where first year I played a little. Second year, I played a lot more, and I really showed them that I could play. But then again, you're still dealing with the politics of the game and whatnot. So even though I'm showing y'all that I can play, the defense is telling y'all, hey, this kid can play. Like, we can't cover this kid. Like, he's good. Like, what's going on? Yet still, I had to wait my turn because right after that, they drafted Kevin Dyson in the first round. So now you got Kevin Dyson they drafted in the first round in '98. You got Joy Kent, who they drafted in the second round in '97 with me. Then you had Chris Sanders, who was their third round and the starting receiver they drafted 3 years prior, and Isaac Berg, who they brought in. It's like, man, where do I
It
fall
just
on the
keeps,
depth chart?
yeah, it
It's
just
yeah,
keeps
it's just
going.
like I keep. Well,
Oh,
then you go get Carl Pickens and Yancey Thigpen. And it's like, man, I've shown y'all, I've proven to y'all that I can play. But yet still, you still get pushed down on the on the totem pole, so to speak.
that's a little
So
disheartening.
yeah, it got a lot disheartening. It really did. It caused me to question. I got up. I was an angry worker. Let's say that I was a disgruntled worker. And being in this field, you can't be a disgruntled worker and go out there and do your job and maximize your ability. You just can't do it. And this is when, like, my third, fourth year, this is when I started to become really good friends with Chris Sanders. And Chris would always tell me, he'd sit me down, we would talk, and he was a believer and loved the Lord and everything. And he would just share things with me. And when I remember him one day telling me, he was like, man, say, listen, because he knew I was upset. He knew the situation I was in, but there was nothing he could do. He was like, man, listen, the one thing I can tell you is don't allow them to steal your joy. Whatever they're doing, you can't control who they're putting in front of you, this and that. He said, but one thing you can control is how you go out there. The persona that you put out there, your attitude, that you can control. He said, do not let them kill that, because once they kill it, it's done. And they're just going to,
Yes.
cut you or put you out. They don't care. And when he told me that, I said, you know what? You're right. So every day, no lie, every day from that point on, I went out there with a smile. I laughed, I had fun. I did scout team, no lie. I did scout team as if it was a real game. We would argue in a huddle about who's going to be this receiver, or who's going to be that receiver, who's going to get the ball. Because to me and to us, it was like this was our game.
Yeah.
This is our Sunday game, because I knew I wasn't getting much time other than on special teams.
Actually,
So I treated scout team like it was Sunday, and my parents and brother and my wife at the time was watching me. I went out there and I had fun, and so much so that these defensive guys was like, man, like, this kid, like, he can. They would get mad at me because I was going hard, but they was like, man, this kid can. This We can't cover this kid. He can play. And it wasn't until you know an injury happened. And then once an injury happened, I was able to start playing a little bit more. And then having somebody like Neil O'Donnell, being your being your scout team quarterback or the second quarterback. So you're getting a lot of reps with him. And Neil would always just encourage me to go out there, get open, Mace. No matter what, just get open. I'll find you. We're talking about in practice. He would just say, get open. I'll find you. Don't worry about it. And he would throw me the ball every time because he and I had built a rapport, built that trust that I would catch the ball. So much so when I finally got in the game and I started playing more and more, and Steve started to gain the confidence in me. And then when Steve wasn't playing, he got hurt. When Neil came in, it was like, all right, let's
Here we
go.
go.
And Neil, it didn't matter. Me and Neil, it was like we had been playing together forever. And we didn't miss a beat. And that just helped me build my confidence. Watching an older veteran quarterback who had been to a Super Bowl, who had great years in Pittsburgh, him encouraging me. Not only him, Dave Craig before him. When like in '98, Dave Craig would say, "Man, just go out there and play. I see it in you. You can play. Just go out there and I'm gonna throw you the ball." So I had those people encouraging me. Chris Sanders encouraged me. Les Steckel, who was the offensive coordinator at the time, he would leave me notes in my locker, like inspirational notes, whether it was Bible verses. All of these people were trying to encourage me because they saw something in myself that I saw, but it was just hard to kind of get it on the field because of all the stuff that was in front of me. But once I finally got on the field,
it's on.
I told myself, I said, listen, I am never, ever going to be a backup, ever. And I didn't relinquish my starting position no matter what. I missed 2 games in an 8-year span, and those 2 I didn't want to miss them, but because I had a shoulder injury, and I had a shoulder and a rib injury, so I had to sit out 2 games. But once I got back in there, it was like, man, you will never get me off the field. I wasn't coming out for, if it was regular, I wasn't coming off the field for nobody unless it was jumbo or something like that. If it was just regular wide receiver set, I was not coming out the game. I don't care if we had the game in hand. I did not want to come out the game because I knew what it felt like sitting on the sideline and watching. And I didn't ever want to go through that experience again. So much so that, I remember one time, we and this may have been my 5th or 6th year, and the team's not doing as well, and I'm not getting the ball, and I'm complaining, and not like outwardly in the newspaper or anything else, but like on the sideline, stuff like that. And I remember, one of the coaches and one of the chaplains was like, "Hey, let me talk to you." Brought me in the office, and they were like, "You're gonna have to calm some of this down, this and that." But I had to explain to him, you don't understand how it feels when you work your ass off and nobody notices you and nobody wants to, because of the politics and the bureaucracy, they don't want to put you in a position that you've earned to be put in. But yet still they're trying to put guys in front of you. There were even talks about me being traded to the San Diego Chargers at the time, now the LA Chargers. So I had all this stuff picked up, and I was like, listen, I'm going to play the way I play. I'm going to do the things that I do. Why? I'm always respectful to everybody. I love my teammates. I will work hard. Nobody's going to outwork me. But I said, I got an attitude of, I've been there. I don't want to go back to that place. So that's why I have the demeanor that I have. That's why I'm passionate when I'm out there, because I know what it's like to not be out there. And you're not going to tell me to calm myself down, because if I calm myself down, it takes away every leverage that I have as a player. Wow. So they left me alone. I kept playing. Kept playing away, and I kept playing great. So, it's like, okay, Mason's good. He's going to do it. But I know one thing about him. He's going to show up every game. He's going to give 100%. He's going to practice 100%. He's not going to take practices off. Even if he's dinged up, he's still going to go out there and play. I was one that I didn't want to miss games, and I didn't want to miss practice.
And I think that's something that, fans, loyal fans and fans, been Titan fans for a very long time. That's one thing we love and respect about you, is that you showed up every Sunday to play the game regardless. And that's something, as you can tell, fans still appreciate you, being around in Nashville. And we love that, that about you, So.
Yeah, it was something I used. It's sort of like everybody has their sort of advantage or superpower. Some guys are faster than others. Some guys are taller than others. I think, for me, my willingness, I played the game with a defensive mentality. I played it like I was going to keep coming at you over and over and over, and I wasn't going to back down. That's because growing up, that's what my brothers taught me. Don't back down, keep coming. You know, I remember this had to be, I was like 8 or 9, yeah, and it was it's a school right across the street from my house before my mom and dad moved. It's a school right across the street from my house called Columbus. I ended up going to Columbus for kindergarten and middle school, but it was directly across the street. But there was this strip of grass that we would play football on. It was about 75 yards long, but
Mhm.
only like 15 yards wide, so it wasn't wide, and it had this tree in the middle of it. I remember my brother one day took me out there to play against this other kid in the neighborhood named Corey. Corey was bigger than me.
Mhm.
Corey outweighed me by probably 100 pounds. He was a big kid. And so I remember playing him for hours, and no exaggeration. I could bring my brother on here, he would tell you the story. I played this kid for hours, and my brother was like, listen, I am not throwing you the football deep because I can outrun the kid,
Yeah, you don't want
outrun
to
him.
do that.
He was like, nope, I'm not throwing you the ball deep. Everything is going to be short in front of him while handing the ball off to you, and you just got to have to get through him.
Gonna
Or
hurt.
he would hand Corey the football, just hand it to him, and I would have to tackle him. And even when I didn't want to, it was like, get up, go again. And I'm talking about for over an hour that I had to do this playing. And, that I look back on it now, it was like those things taught me
Teamwork.
how toughness, resilience, and to never give up, no matter how big the guy is. You go out and you may not win. You may not win the game. You may not win that play. You may not win
But
that series, but you get back up and you keep fighting because eventually that guy's going to be like, man,
this guy,
I don't like this guy. He's never going to quit. Like you weren't going to outrun me. You weren't going to outplay me. I was going to be in your face all day. I was going to run. I always told my receivers, we got to be the most conditioned people on the field because we run. I would run an I route, run back to the huddle, and be ready to go again.
nice, and that's what it's about. So it seems to me like your brother played a really big part. Would you say that? It seems like every story that you talk about, it's
Uh-huh.
usually your brother talking to you or giving you, a life lesson and stuff like that.
Yeah, when you have three older brothers, I mean, that all played sports.
Mhm.
Two out of the three went to college on an athletic scholarship. The other
Yeah.
went to the armed services. So when you have older brothers that have played baseball, football, ran track, you're always going to get those lessons about never giving up, and fighting hard, and nothing's ever given to you. So you're always going to get those. So throughout my career, whether it was my older brothers, or even my little brother,
Mhm.
just him, he didn't have, my little brother, there's not much he can tell me, but just the fact of him being a little brother and watching me, you always wanted to make him proud of
Mhm.
his older brother on the football field or whatnot. So, and then you talk about coaches like Robert Lynch, who finally got convinced me to go out there on the football field. So you talk about Coach Lynch, and then Charlie Baggett and Bobby Williams. And here's a cool story. So uh, Bobby, what was it? 3 years prior, 3 or 4 years prior, uh, came to my mom's and dad's house to recruit my, not the oldest, but the brother right above me.
Okay.
Came to recruit him to go to Eastern Michigan because Bobby was at Eastern Michigan at the time. So he recruited my brother to go to Eastern Michigan.
Mhm.
My brother came and sat in my parents' living room, talked to my parents, yada yada yada. And so as he's leaving, my brother says, don't worry about it. You'll be back to get my little brother too." And I'm thinking, like, yeah, right, okay. And lo and behold, he was right back in my parents' living room
Full
years later
circle,
to
man.
recruit me to go to Michigan State. So guys like
Yeah.
Bobby Williams, Charlie Baggett, Nick Saban, Skip Pete, those guys like that helped me. And then ultimately getting to the NFL, whether it was Les Steckel or the other coaches that I had that continue to encourage me to become a better player.
It seems like, because I've had Chris Sanders on before, and it seems
Hmm.
like Les Seckel is a name that keeps coming up as
Hmm.
someone who was a very big figure and
Hmm.
motivational person. Would you say that?
Yeah, he was because I think well, at least I know from my own experience,
Yeah.
Les cared about the person. He
Yeah.
didn't care about the football player. He cared about the person. I tell you, he would put a Bible verse in my locker every day. Every morning I would come to my locker, there'd be a card sitting in my locker with a Bible verse on it. And, as a young guy, you don't think much of it. But as you start to get older, you're like, okay,
Yep.
yeah, it started to connect. Like this guy really cares.
Yeah. 100%. That's one thing I want to ask you before we get into the the fan questions was you kept on referring to the politics in the game. And
Uh-huh.
what do you mean by the politics in the game and just like um
Because you see it, I don't know if you see it more now than you
mhm,
used to, but you know, if they drafted you,
mhm.
first, second round, you got first shot
Gotcha.
at
First dibs, right?
proving you can play. Yeah, no matter what I did, it was always, well, he's the fourth rounder. This guy drafted high, so I got to give them every opportunity, regardless if you've proven to them that you can play in this game.
Yeah.
Well, then, okay, you can play, but we drafted this guy before you, so we're going to give him every chance. Or we brought this guy in as a free agent, high price free agent, so we're
Mhm.
going to give him every chance that he. And I'm sure guys go through it now.
Yeah.
So I just had to fight my way through it,
Gotcha.
and and just realize who I was as a player. It took a lot. It took a lot from other people to continue to encourage me, but I had to continually remember that I'm a good player in this league. I can play in this league. And
Gotcha.
sometimes coaches make you feel like you can't.
Hmm. Did Jeff Fisher ever at one point ever make you frustrated or you ever bumped heads with him?
I mean, yeah, I
Yes or
bump
no?
heads with you. You
Everyone?
bump, yeah. It's just like in the midst of a game, you may bump
Mm,
heads,
yeah.
and
Mm,
But until I started, um, until they had no choice but to play me, I think that's when he started to recognize, like, okay,
yeah.
this kid, I gotta give him a chance. This kid can play. Even though I had been showing him for 3 years that I could play in this league, but
Mhm.
it took an injury here and an injury there for me to actually get my opportunity.
Gotcha. I gotcha. All right. So this is the fun segment where people interact with the show and
Hmm.
stuff. I have 6 or 7 questions, fans that ask. I might have answered them. You might have answered them throughout the
Uh-huh.
review. If anything, we'll kind of just be like, yeah, I remember like that, and we can just skip through them. But
Okay.
for the most part, our first question goes from Kelly Bean. She wants to know what was his favorite play slash memory during his time with the Titans.
Favorite play. I would say the
Is it
run back
Jacksonville?
against Jacksonville.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
gonna say like it
in the
had to be.
playoff. Yeah, in the playoff. That was probably the most memorable play. I had made plays up until that point, but the situation,
Just
the
the
time,
yeah, just
what we were trying to accomplish, yeah, that play sort of broke their back, and we were able to beat them for the third time.
do you can you have that replay in your head? Like, do you remember like getting the ball? You remember just going down? Like, do you remember any of that, or is it kind of like
Oh yeah, I mean, no,
yeah?
I'm not gonna say it's that play. I may not remember a lot of other ones, but that play I remember as if it was yesterday. It was a free kick. We had just got Josh Evans had just sacked Brunell in the end zone. Rest in peace, Josh Evans. He had just sacked. He got a safety, so they had a free kick. Our special teams unit, kickoff unit, was excellent. We were
On point.
coming
On
on as one
point.
of the
Yeah.
best units in the National Football League. And I just remember him kicking the ball and me catching it, making a move, stopping, go, making a move, hitting the hole. A guy trying to trip me up. I run through the leg tackle, and there was a convoy and off to the races, and that end zone couldn't come fast enough.
All right, we got another one. We got Chad Davis wants to know, who was your favorite teammate to play with?
Oh man, I think all of the guys were good teammates, man. Whether it be here in Titans or in Baltimore, I enjoyed playing with them all. There's not one specific guy. Obviously, I gravitated more toward the wide receiver because we spent the most time together. But I enjoyed definitely playing with Steve and Eddie, Blaine Bishop, Samari Rowe. I enjoy playing really with the offensive linemen because those guys are hoop, man. They the offensive line dictates how the offense is going to go. And we had a bunch of grinders on that offensive line. Hall of Famer and Bruce Matthews. Hell, B Hop should be a Hall of Famer. But because there were so many great tackles in that day and age, he didn't get the Pro Bowls, enough of the Pro Bowls that I think he deserved, or the All Pros. But you had so many other really good tackles that were playing, Hall of Fame tackles, they were playing in his era. So, but I enjoy playing with that offensive line. Zach Pillar, Benji Olsen, all those guys. When I see him now, Frank Wycheck. I see those guys now, you just smile, especially the big guys. You just smile because those guys were fun.
All right, we have one. This one goes back to college, but this is David Clark. He actually he lives in Michigan, so again, he goes, who would you like to see be the next head coach of the Michigan State Spartans?
I have no idea. At this point, I know Urban Meyer name has been circulated, but I'm like, gosh, we just got out of one issue. We don't want to bring another issue into the locker room or to that university. So I'm sure whoever, Allen, the AD there, whoever, they choose and the president chooses. And I know Coach D will be a part of it as well. Coach D just need to come back, man. Coach D'Antonio, he just needs to come back and coach. But I know they're going to pick the right individual for that job.
All right. Next question we have. All right, man. It's let's see. This one has to do with Titan. We'll do. All right. Someone wants to know, who was the hardest player he went against?
Hardest player. Gosh. I mean, I wouldn't say necessarily hardest, but I think Pittsburgh and Baltimore, their defense is just like hell to go against. So whether it was Chris McAllister, whether it was the defensive backs for Pittsburgh Steelers, Ty Law was another guy that I was like, and I was a young guy too, and Ty was already an established guy. I played against him my freshman year, but I didn't play a lot. I played a little. So I played while he was at Michigan his senior year, and I was at Michigan State my freshman year. But playing against him in the NFL, it was tough because he earned that gold jacket. He was that type of player. So, yeah, he was one of the players. But then Pittsburgh and Baltimore going against McAllister, man, those guys were tough.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Ryan wants to know, what made him choose to sign with the Baltimore Ravens in 2005? Now, I don't know too much of the history with the ending. With the Titans and going to the Ravens. I don't think it was good though, right?
No, it was. I mean, listen, we had spent 4 years building that team up. Well, longer than 4 years, but those last 4 years, we were on the road. 4 or 5 years, we were on the road. If we were healthy, we were one of the best teams in the National Football League. You're talking about going to 2 AFC championships in that span, going to another divisional round, had winning 10, 11, 12 games. So we were that team. But ultimately in, 2004, the cap was what it was, and they had to do a purge. And I was one of those guys that, that had to be let go. I knew it was coming. I was hoping that we could work out a deal to keep me here in Nashville, but it didn't happen. But I understand it was a business. So my thing was, okay, where do I want to go that's going to give me an opportunity to have an opportunity to go to the Super Bowl? And I had plays in Baltimore. That defense was, it was like, listen, I'd rather play with that defense than have to play against it. So I ended up going to Baltimore. It was the greatest experience. And we came close. We went to, I think, 2 AFC championship games with them, a divisional game. So we had some success there as well. But that's why I chose to go to Baltimore.
Okay.
I had other suitors, but Baltimore was the team. I just thought they had a young quarterback. They had Todd Heap, Jamal Lewis was there to run it back from UT. So I felt, man, this is the team that's destined to win the Super Bowl. So I'm going here.
Gotcha. We have Greg Kit wants to know, does he like kidney in his pie? Now, I had, man, let me tell you, I had steak and kidney. Okay. I didn't like it. Like I said, I had it. I'll never have it again. But it was rough.
Kidney in my pie. No, I'm not a big pie person. So I'm not gonna say that I do. I prefer my cake.
There we go.
Other than pie. Yeah.
All right. We have one last question, and then I'll let you go, man. All right. This guy wants to know: does he think the issue with the Titans is coaching or the players not executing?
I just think the roster's not as good. They've missed on some picks and some free agents didn't work out. Yeah. I think the coaching staff is a good coaching staff. I think they do have some good players on that team, but they don't have enough in today's NFL. And so I can't just blame it on the coaches. I think it's a collaborative effort extent of everybody across the board. Some games are, they're 2-4 right now, and it seems like, they're trading Kevin Byard away, they're trading him away. They still may trade other guys away. So this team looks as if they're trying to set themselves up for next year's draft, which is smart to do because, frankly, this roster isn't good enough. They were not good enough to start the season. I don't think the roster was as good last year. And it showed as they started to get injured. So you come in this season. I think
they realized it. I think they wanted to be at least competitive. And then once people started dropping, they're like, you know what?
Let's just go.
Let's just do it because it's not working, which makes sense. I get it. Well, Derrick, let me tell you that it's been an honor to have you on the show, man. I do appreciate your work ethic. I loved hearing your stories. Again, big fan. People in Tennessee still love you, man. Like, again, respectable, even though you retired as a Raven.
Hey, listen, I tell people, listen, I wanted, before I went off to the Jets that year, because Baltimore had to release me, and I understood it. They wanted to get younger, and they had just gotten Anquan Bolden, was a little bit younger than me. So I understood it. But my thing was, I want to go back to Nashville. I want to go back to finish my career out in Nashville. And I tell you, I tried to do everything to get myself back here. We talked with the GM we talked to the GM at the time, and they were like, "Oh, we're trying to work out Chris Johnson's deal, yada yada yada, this and that." And I'm thinking, like, man, I just want to be there. You ain't got to pay me a lot of money. I just want to go. If you look at my stats over the last year, they're better than any wide receiver that you have.
Yep.
And you still didn't want to bring me in, so then that's why I was like, okay, I tried. They didn't want me. So, and then once I finally retired, everybody was gone. Everybody. I mean, Jeff Fisher, Floyd Reese was gone. No coaches were there that was on that coaching staff. So it was like a bunch of the people that I didn't know.
Gotcha.
So it was like, what are they going to say about me? They don't know me. And it felt a little bit unfamiliar. Now, if Jeff was there or Floyd was there or some coaches were there that I knew, then yes, I'd be like, let's go back, But it was like, y'all didn't want me when I wanted to come back.
Gotcha.
And okay.
Yeah. All right. That makes me feel a little bit better, right? I'm just
saying. I didn't believe me. I even in my retirement, thing that I did. First, I mentioned the Titans, how much I respected that and how much I loved that they drafted me and gave me an opportunity. Jeff Fisher, all of those, Floyd Reese. So all, their names and the Titans were in sort of my press conference. So I didn't forget about them. It was just, You know, they didn't want me.
Yeah, I get you. I
So
get
it's like,
I get it,
did
man. But hey, man, we still watch you here, right? We watch you here, all right? So don't get it twisted, all right? But I want to say, man, thank you so much for coming on and taking your time and talking with me. I do appreciate it, brother. I was glad.
No problem, man.
Glad I met you in
Anytime.
London, man.
Anytime.
Yeah, I know, brother.